Right, guys, so this has to be done. We have to go over UFC 313. It wouldn't be an MMA Girl podcast without going over last week's UFC fight night. And this time around, it was UFC 313. So I'm going to go over the highlights and the major events that happened at UFC 313. Obviously, we're going to go over the whole main card and some of the prelims, but starting off, there were a lot of low blows in less than 2 fights. There were 4 low blows, and I think in the main card there were at least 2 other low blows. I don't know what was happening on that evening. I don't know if guys wanted to get inspired by Alex Pereira's high kicks and low kicks and were like, let's just kick every one of our opponents, and unfortunately miss a lot of the ones that we were kicking. There were a lot of low blows, so a lot of timeouts. A lot of the refs must have been annoyed that there was so many timeouts, but that was just a silly comment from my part on the low blow situation at UFC 13. But if you guys watched it from start to finish, you'll remember what I'm talking about. There were a lot of low blows that night. Second thing to note, unfortunately, we had 2 fights cancelled at the last minute just before they came out, literally before the fight started, including Curtis Blades' fight was cancelled because apparently there was an illness going around the UFC PI, and both Curtis Blades and another guy who was fighting, can't remember his name, had to come out and had to pull out their fights. So both fights were cancelled at the very last minute. So instead of starting at in French time at half midnight, it started at 1:30 a.m. in France. I don't know what time it is where you were, but in any case, we had an hour to wait for the fights to start in the end because those 2 fights were cancelled off the prelim card. So that was disappointing because I was hoping to see Curtis Blades fight again. So I was quite disappointed with that, but c'est la vie, as they say in France. And of course, that's the fight game. Sometimes there are last minute changes. So that's what happens. 2 fights cancelled. So the card started off a bit jinxed, I would say. Let's just put it that way. A notable robbery from the prelim card was obviously the Myron Santos and Francis Marshall match. Everyone had Francis Marshall winning that fight. Even Joe Rogan, once he saw Santos getting his hand raised, he looked so confused, as did everyone, I think. And Marshall was so disappointed to see that he lost the split decision against Santos. Santos obviously will defend his victory because, that I'd get it. If it was my victory, I would have defended myself as well. I don't see how he won that fight. I don't think, again, the judges saw the same fight as we did. But they consider that Santos won, so Santos won the fight for them, and that's what's been put on the books. But unfortunately for Marshall, he got robbed. Let's just put it that way. 2 notable victories from the prelim card before we go into the main card were Carlos Leal versus Morono. First round KO for Carlos Leal. An intense start. It started off really heavy hitting, and it ended up that way. Didn't last long, and he just got in there with a very efficient, dominant victory. So kudos to Carlos Leal. He wasn't favorite in this fight, I don't think. Morono was. And as I said last week, I was excited to see Morono coming back, and I would have loved to see him in the win column, but it just wasn't his night. So he got finished by TKO in less than 1 round. So congratulations to Carlos Leal for that victory, and hopefully we'll be seeing Morono come back into the win column the next time he fights. The other fight that I want to talk about from the prelims was obviously the fight between Bruno Ferreira and Armen Petrosian, which was a very intense, insane fight. Second round submission for Bruno Ferreira. Insane armbar that looked amazing, beautifully done. He seemed to have gone into there with a great takedown that was literally like a spear, basically. He speared him and took him down and then armbarred him. It was just a flawless victory for Bruno Ferreira, who is a very tough cookie because Petrosian's not an easy fight to take. So I'm hoping we'll see Bruno Ferreira compete against another ranked opponent next time we see him, because he looks like he's going to be a real threat in the middleweight division, guys. Bruno Ferreira, he reminds me a bit of Duplessis with the same sort of really stocky build. They're a bit shorter but very thick, very muscly, very big. Congratulations to Bruno Ferreira. Good luck on the rest of your career. I think it's going to be a great career, so I'm not worried about him at all. Next up, so we're going to be talking about the main card now. First fight on the main card, Rufy versus King Green. What an insane KO that was. Instant headshot, dead. Not a TKO, no ground and pound. Rufy performed what I was told was a flying wheel kick, as Ariel Hawani described it on his Twitter just after the KO, in 2 minutes and 7 seconds of the first round. Honestly, an instant KO, insane mic drop moment. Everyone was crazy mad. Bobby went to sleep. Caio Borralho was insanely excited. He was in his corner, of course. And Caio Borralho, as I said to you guys last week, he said, you guys are going to discover someone that I already know is one of the best fighters in the UFC. Or even the best fighter I know myself personally. And you guys are going to discover that every time you see him in a fight, he's going to shock you every single time. And he said, word for word, before the fight started, do not blink. And that is literally the best way to describe this. Do not blink. In 2 minutes and 7 seconds, Bobby Green was sleeping on a cloud right above him, and he was just gone. The fighting nets are very, very dangerous, guys. I think we should take them very much more seriously. I personally said that I thought maybe Bobby Green would win this match by KO or decision. I'm going to eat my words, and I'm never going to bet against the fighting nerds ever again, even if one day they're obviously going to lose. They're currently 18-0 at the UFC. That's saying something, guys. And at UFC 314, we're going to see 2 fighting nerds in one night. I mean, I'm not betting against them. I'm just telling you in advance. But amazing spinning wheel kick from Rufy. Amazing KO. He was literally headshot off. So let's go on to the second fight, Lemos versus Lucindo. I predicted Lucindo would have the victory, but that wasn't how that turned out. It wasn't her night. Lucinda seemed a bit overwhelmed by Lemos's skills. Lemos being a very veteran fighter, she demonstrated in the first 2 rounds that she was a dominant opponent here, and she was a dominant fighter in the fight. She owned the cage and she owned the fight. Won by decision, could have won by submission, but it's in the end, a win's a win. So Lemos in the winning column again, a decision win for Lemos, a unanimous decision win for Lemos. So hopefully we'll see Lucindo come back. She's only 23, so she's got time. And yeah, let's move on to the next fight. Obviously, we saw Jalen Turner versus Bahamondes, where Bahamondes was able to sneak in the submission win against Jalen Turner. He managed to turn it around because obviously Jalen Turner was on top of Bahamondes, and he was able to turn it around and do a triangle choke with his long legs. It was just insane. I've never seen something like that in my life, and I think his long legs were his advantage in this fight for Bahamondes, and obviously his creativity and his ability to get out of situations where he is being smothered by his opponent or dominated by his opponent. Bilal Muhammad was obviously in his corner and was shouting from the corner saying, get out of there, get out of there, get back on the feet. But Bahamondes had other ideas and said, no, I'm going to get out of it the way I can, and I'm going to choke him out. So his long legs came into use, and he had a great triangle choke victory against Jalen Turner. The sad news, however, is that Jalen Turner, following his fight against Bahamondes, has decided to retire. He immediately after the fight decided to retire. He told Bahamondes, I couldn't tell what they were saying, but it looks like he was telling Bahamondes, no, I'm done. I'm throwing in the towel. Thank you very much, but I just can't do this anymore. And Bahamondes immediately suggested that he come in and he train with him at his gym, and that he see whether he can, rejudge Jalen Turner's fighting style and his motivation to fight. I'm not sure if his decision is final, but as we saw in the UFC lounge just after the fight at backstage, he really did look like he was done. He said it was mainly due to his mental health, because physically he's young, he's physically fit, he's been fighting for a long time at the UFC, and unfortunately he has decided to hang up the gloves today, for the time being. So if this is the last time we saw Jalen Turner, then I'm very sad to say goodbye. But if for his mental health, it's better off that he pursue other ventures, then so be it. It's not a nice way to see a guy so young and with so much potential leave the sport like that. But he said after UFC 300, he obviously lost his last fight. He said that he was looking to come back in the win column, and he thought that he would win against Bahamondes, but unfortunately that just didn't happen. So If that's the last time we saw you, Jalen, thank you so much for your fights. Thank you so much for your service to the UFC. But I hope it's not the last time we see you. Really, I hope not. Get well soon. In any case, get well soon. Next up, the co-main event of the evening, Justin Gaethje versus Fiziev. I predicted that Justin Gaethje would lose this fight. I was clearly very wrong about that, and very happily wrong. I was very happy to be wrong about that. I just realistically, I thought as both fighters were going to look for the KO. I just thought back to the Max Holloway Justin Gaethje fight and saw, flashbacks of them just throwing their fists around and Justin Gaethje not having that precision that Max Holloway was able to use against him and knock him out in the last second of the last round. But that doesn't mean that Justin Gaethje wasn't capable of coming back into the win column by all means. And as we've seen in his fight against Fiziev, he's still got it, guys. He's 36 years old. He now says that he wants the title. He said that I think I've done enough to make Dana and Hunter give me a title shot. So they might be considering putting him against the Makhachev in the near future. I hope so. Maybe it'll be this year, maybe next year, but Justin does not have that much time on the clock left. So hopefully he'll be getting his title shot in the near future. He's third ranked in the UFC lightweight division. So why not? Why not? Regarding the fight itself, Justin Gaethje had landed over 70% of his jabs and strikes that he was throwing, and they were looking really hard. So Fiziev, as Justin Gaethje said, he's a tough MF. He was not an easy opponent at all. This is why I thought Fiziev might grab the victory, because he wasn't going to be an easy opponent. Even if he was coming on short notice, Fiziev was so hungry and ready and waiting for this fight that he just couldn't compose himself. But unfortunately, that didn't mean that he was going to win. So Justin Gaethje had a great dominant performance in his fight. Some scares, some takedowns, some knockdowns from Justin Gaethje onto Fiziev, but that was just not enough to put him away. At least he got the win. A win's a win. The fight was obviously a fight of the night contender, and it was fight of the night eventually when we found out who got the bonuses. On a side note, Bahamunda's got the bonus of 50,000 for his submission, so great for him as well. And this fight was a classic. It's one for the books, guys. So congratulations to Justin Gaethje, and I hope he'll get his title shot in the near future. On the Fiziev front, however, Fiziev has stated that he feels like he's too small for the lightweight division, and has confirmed to Ariel Helwani that he wants to move down to the featherweight division. So, I mean, that's a great idea. We saw Joaquin Buckley do the same thing when he moved down from middleweight to welterweight, and it's going super well for him. So maybe Fiziev has found what was missing and will maybe be a lot better in the featherweight division. So let's see how that happens. In any case, I'm happy to see these both guys looking good. Even though Fiziev lost, he looked great. Justin Gaethje just reminded us why he's called the highlight. So I'm very proud and happy to be a fan of Justin Gaethje right now. So yeah, let's move on to the main event. Alex Pereira versus Ankalaev. And for Alex Pereira fans, we left with our tails between our legs and sobbing because Alex lost his belt on Saturday night, of course. Honestly, a well-deserved win from Ankalaev. I think you have to be objective and look at things in the way that analysts look at fights and say to yourself, was he deserving of that title? Yes, he was. Is it sad to see Alex lose his belt? Of course. For any fight fan, it was really hard to see. Alex was and still is currently, I think, the biggest star in the company, and we'll forever be thanking Israel Adesanya for bringing him to the UFC, for encouraging him to follow him to the UFC after their kickboxing adventures. So, that nothing takes away from the impact and the run he has had in the UFC. Not to mention the amount of non-fight fans that have become fight fans because of Alex Pereira, how the UFC has become, and MMA in general has become even more mainstream thanks to Alex Pereira and his contribution to this industry. So can't take anything away from what he's done in the past, and he has defended his belt so many times. Obviously, there was these rumors that he'd taken a bit too much time off. He wasn't looking as fit. He wasn't looking as put together. I think it was just the fighting style that Ankalaev came with to the table was just too overwhelming for Alex. Quite simply, I don't think there's any way around it. The fighting scorecards were quite mixed, but obviously all three judges gave the win to Ankalaev. So as a lot of people were saying, Alex looked a bit stiff. He looked put off by Ankalaev's strategy. And I think Ankalaev came with enough strategies to the table. Alex does quite a lot of, lands quite a lot of body kicks. He's very precise when he's jabbing. His striking is not all over the place. He really waits until he's got the best moment to strike. A lot of the times where there was no action because they were both sizing each other up, and you're just, you're screaming at the screen saying, why are you not hitting him? Why are you not striking? But that's just part of the game plan to neutralize the other guy's game plan. So unfortunately, Alex was the one that came out with the loss. And after the fight, he said it's a shame that we let people win fights when they fight in that way, because that's what would encourage more people to fight in that way. I don't think we should take anything away from Ankalaev. He won that fight fair and square. But the beautiful sport of MMA obviously is that much more beautiful when we get a real brutal fight, when we get some real brutal moments, and there's a lot of action-packed rounds. Obviously this time around it wasn't as action-packed as some of the fights we've seen, especially from Alex Pereira, but I think we'll see him come back. The negotiations have already been put in place for the revenge match, so we'll be seeing Ankalaev Pereira too. We did see, however, a very important moment from Bruce Buffer on Saturday night, if some of you noticed. Everyone's been talking about it on social media since then, but as soon as I heard it, I was like, oh my goodness, he said the one and the only Alex Pereira. This is insane. Saying the one, the only is something very much, it's a very privileged title to receive from Bruce Buffer when he's announcing your name in the octagon. So much so, as there's only been 3 people in the history of the UFC where Bruce Buffer is announced as the one and the only, including Alex Pereira, the other 2 being John Jones and Conor McGregor. So it's a huge accolade for Alex Pereira to be called the one, the only Alex Pereira. And I think that's something he can take to the grave. That's just an insane achievement in its own. Conor McGregor has lost fights. He's not unbeatable, invincible, and yet still he was the one, the only, because it's a whole package. You've got Alex Pereira as a fighter he's an amazing fighter, but also the personality that he has, the aura that Alex Pereira has, makes him that just so much more special. And you can tell because people just love the guy from everywhere. And as I said, he's brought people to the sport that would never have watched MMA in the first place. So he well deserved the one, the only. But just, sadly, it comes just before his first loss in a while. So I'm excited to see Alex come back. I think it would be nice to see him take a bit of a break and actually go on holiday outside of his camp and just, take some time out for his kids. Obviously, if you guys saw in the videos, his 2 sons were obviously ringside and they were sobbing. Seeing their father lose after so many victories is very hard to see. But that's life. People lose fights, as we always see in this fight game. Sunday morning's fight between Alex Pereira and Ankalaev, and just the whole card in general, ending on that kind of low note for us fight fans, that's just reminded me of how fickle the fight business is, and how you can love someone one day and the next day they could be gone. Thank you very much for listening. Comment down below what you thought of UFC 313. Like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you next week for a new episode of the MMA Girl Podcast. Thank you very much for watching.